A shepherd walks into a forest with 200 sheep. He never comes back. Not him, not a single sheep, not even a hoof print. A girl disappears while playing near the trees. 5 years later, she walks out. Same clothes, same height, same age. She thought she'd been gone for 2 hours. A perfect circle in the center of the forest where absolutely nothing grows. Scientists test the soil. It's perfectly fertile, better than the surrounding land, actually. But not even a single blade of grass will take root there. Compasses spin wildly. Phone batteries drain to zero, then mysteriously refill the moment you step outside. Cameras malfunction. People hear whispers in languages they don't understand. And sometimes they come back with scratches and bruises they never felt getting. This isn't folklore. This isn't legend. This is Hoia Baciu Forest in Transylvania, Romania. And for decades, no one, not scientists, not the government, not paranormal investigators, has been able to explain what's really happening there. But before we dive into all of this, I want to thank everyone watching. Please hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Cluj, Romania, 1968. The darkness was thick, almost suffocating. Police officers were shouting to each other, their voices carrying through the twisted trees. Nothing here either. Sector 3 search complete, no trace. Sector 4 is the same, absolutely nothing. The search team had been combing through the forest for 2 days straight. Flashlight beams swept between the gnarled, twisted trees that seemed to bend away from the light. What they were looking for? A shepherd and his 200 sheep. An entire flock. Gone. "I don't understand," one officer said, his voice tight with frustration and growing fear. "How can 200 sheep disappear without a trace? It's impossible." The search team leader shook his head slowly, his face pale in the moonlight. No footprints, no wool caught on branches, no droppings, nothing. It's as if they were never here in the first place, like they just vanished into thin air. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Some were starting to remember the stories, the warnings, the legends the locals whispered about this place. That's when one team member discovered something strange. A clearing in the center of the forest. Not just any clearing, a perfect circle. Empty land where nothing grew. The ground was bare, exposed, like a wound in the earth. "Sir, over here! Look at this!" The team gathered at the edge of the clearing, staring at the unnaturally perfect circle. It was too precise, too geometric. Nature didn't work like this. The moment they stepped into that circle, something happened. The air felt different, heavier, colder. One team member shook his flashlight, frowning. "Why is it flickering? I just put in new batteries this morning. They should be good for hours." Another team member looked down at his wristwatch and gasped. The hands were spinning wildly, backwards and forwards, like the mechanism inside had gone completely haywire. Why is this happening? This watch has never done this before." A third officer pulled out his compass, hoping to orient himself. The needle spun erratically, pointing in every direction at once, then stopping at random angles that made no sense. "Let's get out! Right now!" The captain's voice trembled, all authority draining from it. He'd been in dangerous situations before. Riots, armed suspects, life-threatening emergencies. But this was different. This was wrong on a fundamental level he couldn't explain. The team scrambled backward, away from the circle, not wanting to spend another second in that place. Their equipment started working normally again the moment they crossed the boundary. Flashlights steady, watches keeping proper time, compasses pointing north like they should. They stood there in silence, breathing hard, looking back at that clearing. After that day, the shepherd and his 200 sheep were never found. Not a single trace of them ever turned up. No bodies, no bones, no wool, nothing. And the police officers who participated in the search? They never wanted to enter that forest again. Some of them refused outright when asked to return. Others had nightmares for weeks afterward. One officer requested a transfer to a different city entirely, unwilling to work anywhere near Hoia Baciu Forest. Hoia Baciu Forest sits in the heart of Transylvania, extending over 300 hectares on the outskirts of Cluj-Napoca. During the day, it looks like something from a fantasy movie, dense, ancient, mysterious. Sunlight filters through the canopy, birds sing, the air smells of earth and pine. But at night, it becomes something else entirely. The shadows deepen, the silence becomes oppressive, and the forest seems to watch you. The shepherd who disappeared was an experienced man named Baciu. He'd been raising sheep for years and knew the area well. Practical, level-headed, not the type to take unnecessary risks. One day, he decided to take his flock of 200 sheep to graze near the forest. It made sense. There was good grass, perfect for herding. The villagers tried to stop him. "Not near that forest, please, Baciu, go somewhere else." "That place, it's not right. You know the stories." But Baciu brushed it off with a laugh. "I don't believe in old wives' tales. It's just a forest. And with 200 sheep, what could possibly happen? They make enough noise to scare off any wolf or bear for miles." He patted one of the older women on the shoulder reassuringly. "I'll be back before sunset. You'll see." That was the last time anyone saw him alive. When sunset came and the shepherd didn't return, the villagers weren't too worried at first. Sometimes he came back late. But when the next morning came and he still didn't appear, panic set in. They formed a search party, 20 men, armed with staffs, lanterns, and ropes. They brought dogs, too, hoping the animals could pick up a scent. They headed into the forest as the morning sun climbed higher. But the moment they entered, something felt wrong. The trees weren't normal. In healthy forests, trees grow straight toward the sky. But here they were bent and twisted as if in agony. Some spiraled around themselves in impossible corkscrews. Others curved down toward the ground, creating arches that looked deliberately designed for horror. "Why do trees grow like that?" one of the younger men whispered. No one had an answer. The search party pushed deeper, calling out for the shepherd. Their voices echoed strangely, seeming to come back from wrong directions. "Baciu, can you hear us?" But there was no answer, only thick, heavy silence. And here's what made it truly strange. There was no trace of the 200 sheep either. Think about it. That many animals should leave obvious signs. Grass torn up, droppings everywhere, hoof prints, wool caught on branches, the smell of animals. But there was absolutely nothing. As if the shepherd and his entire flock had simply vanished into thin air. The search continued for 3 days. On the second day, they found something that made their blood run cold. The shepherd's staff, half buried in dead leaves. The end was charred black, like it had been held in a fire. The ground around it looked burned from the inside out. There were scorch marks radiating outward, but strangely, nothing had actually burned. The leaves around it were intact. How do you have scorch marks without fire? One of the men reached down to pick up the staff, but another grabbed his wrist. "Don't touch it. Something's not right." On the third day, they reached the center of the forest, and there it was, a perfect circular clearing about 30 meters across. Perfectly circular. You could have drawn it with a compass. No trees, no grass, no bushes, just bare dirt packed hard as concrete. Not even a single blade of grass grew there. "What is this?" one man breathed. One of the braver members tried to walk into that circle, his foot hovering over the boundary, but his companion grabbed him roughly. "Don't. Something's not right here. Can't you feel it?" And they could. All of them could. Standing at the edge felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Some primal part of their brains was screaming at them to back away, to run. Some in the search party started feeling nauseous. One man vomited. Others got dizzy. A few claimed to feel sick for days after leaving that forest. Headaches, fever, a general sense of wrongness they couldn't shake. They walked around the perimeter. The entire area was surrounded by dense forest. But this one circular spot was completely empty and perfectly round, as if something had cleared it with precision. "Nature doesn't do that," the search leader said quietly. "Nature doesn't make perfect circles. This is something else." The shepherd and his 200 sheep were never found. Not then, not ever. The police opened an official investigation. They brought in tracking experts. They searched in every pattern they knew. Same result: vanished without a trace. The case was closed as unsolved, filed away in dusty archives where it sits to this day. But the forest took the shepherd's name. From that day forward, it became known as Hoia Baciu Forest. Hoia meaning clearing, Baciu being the shepherd who disappeared. After that incident, rumors spread through the village like wildfire. The forest took them. There's something evil in there, something old. It's the devil's home. Nobody went near Hoia Baciu after that, especially not after dark, because that's when people started hearing things. "I hear sheep bleating every single night," one old woman told her neighbors, her hands shaking. "At exactly midnight, hundreds of them, someone crying for help, a man's voice. I heard it clearly." Others reported the same thing. Always around midnight, always the sound of sheep bleating in distress. And sometimes, underneath that noise, a man's voice calling for help. But no one dared to check. They knew the truth now. If you went into that forest, especially at night, you might never come back. And whatever had taken Baciu and his 200 sheep, it was still there, still waiting. Years passed, and Hoia Baciu's reputation only grew darker. The forest became a place parents used to frighten. Be good, or the forest will take you like it took Shepherd Baciu. But then, August 18th, 1968 happened, and this mystery took a completely different turn that would transform Hoia Baciu from a local legend into a global phenomenon. Emil Barnea was a military technician for the Romanian army. 45 years old, married, father of 2, a serious man with a serious job. He worked on aircraft systems, radar equipment, technical instruments that required precision and clear thinking. Not the type to see things, not the type to make up stories. That afternoon, it was his day off. He was out walking with his girlfriend and 2 friends near the outskirts of Cluj. The weather was beautiful, clear blue sky, warm sunshine, perfect picnic weather. They stopped in a clearing near the forest. Not in it, near it. Even Emil, skeptical as he was about the legends, wasn't quite comfortable going deeper. They spread out a blanket, unpacked food, opened some wine. It was peaceful, relaxing. Around 1 p.m., Emil's girlfriend suddenly grabbed his arm hard enough to hurt. She was staring up at the sky, her face pale. "Look, what is that?" Emil followed her gaze, shading his eyes against the sun, and there it was. A silver, disc-shaped object hovering above the forest, perhaps 500 meters up. Moving slowly, deliberately, silently. No sound at all. Just this metallic thing reflecting the sunlight, moving in a way that seemed almost liquid, almost alive. Now, Emil was a military technician. He'd spent years working with aircraft. He knew planes, helicopters, experimental prototypes, trained to identify aircraft from silhouettes, engine sounds, flight patterns. But this was nothing he recognized. His hands were shaking, but he managed to pull out his camera. He fumbled with the settings, trying to focus. The object was moving in ways that seemed to defy physics, stopping and starting without acceleration, changing direction without banking. He snapped 2 photos before the object suddenly accelerated and vanished into thin air. Not flew away, vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, as if it had slipped into another dimension. The whole sighting lasted about 2 minutes. 2 minutes that would change Emil's life forever. Here's the thing about Emil's story. He had everything to lose and nothing to gain by coming forward. Romania was a communist country at the time, under Nicolae Ceausescu's regime. The government equated belief in the paranormal with madness and state sabotage. Reporting a UFO sighting could cost you your job, your reputation, your party membership, everything. You could be labeled mentally unstable, sent for evaluation. Your children could be denied educational opportunities. Your family could be watched. But Emil reported it anyway. He went straight to his superiors the next day, photographs in hand. The military launched an investigation. They had to. Emil was one of their own, a trusted technician with security clearance. They analyzed his photos with every tool they had. They checked every possibility. Weather balloon? Wrong shape, wrong movement pattern. Aircraft? Nothing matched. Helicopter? Helicopters are loud and move differently. Experimental craft? They checked their own military programs. Nothing. They even pulled all flight records for that area on August 18th. Nothing was officially flying over Hoia Forest that day. The airspace was empty according to every official record. A few days later, despite the military's attempts to keep it quiet, Emil's photo was leaked to the press. The photo became a sensation overnight. The image was clear, remarkably clear for 1968 technology. A disc-shaped object with a distinctive dome on top, hovering over the forest canopy, right above that mysterious clearing. People tried to prove it was fake. But remember, this was 1968. Photoshop didn't exist. Photo editing meant physically altering negatives, techniques that were incredibly difficult and would leave obvious traces. Experts analyzed that photo from every angle. They looked for evidence of double exposure, miniatures, any indication it had been tampered with. No signs of alteration. None. The photo appeared to be genuine. And then something strange happened. The original negative disappeared. Just gone. Not lost or misplaced. It was marked as lost in military records, filed away in a report that was immediately classified. Emil lost his job. Not immediately, but the pressure built. Whispers, accusations, questions about his mental stability, suggestions that he should take early retirement for health reasons. A few years later, in the early 1970s, he left Romania entirely. It wasn't easy. Emigrating from a communist country required special permission, connections, sometimes bribes. But Emil managed it, desperate to escape the stigma. Before he left, he met with a friend one last time. They sat in a small cafe, drinking bad coffee, not talking much. Finally, as they stood to part ways, his friend asked quietly, "Was it real, what you saw?" Emil looked at him for a long moment. Then he said just one thing, his voice barely a whisper. "That wasn't from our world." Then he turned and walked away. He never returned to Romania, never spoke publicly about the incident again. But the photograph remains. Copies exist, scattered across the world, analyzed and reanalyzed by researchers. The original negative may be gone, but the image lives on. A silver disc hovering over Hoia Baciu Forest, a moment frozen in time, proof that something happened on August 18th, 1968. Something that cost Emil Barnea everything. After Emil's photo went public, more reports started flooding in. Locals who had been too afraid to speak up suddenly came forward. I saw green lights moving through the trees. They moved like they were alive. Orange lights circling the treetops. I watched for 10 minutes before they vanished. Throughout the 1970s, the forest became a hotspot for UFO sightings. People started traveling there specifically to try to catch a glimpse, and many did report seeing strange lights, especially around that circular clearing. Scientists proposed theories. Maybe it was geological, unique rock formations creating electromagnetic fields that caused hallucinations. Or maybe, and this was the bolder theory, the forest was some kind of energy point, an anomaly in Earth's magnetic field, a place where the boundary between our world and something else was thin. But honestly, nobody really knew. Right in the middle of Hoia Forest sits that perfectly circular clearing, about 30 meters across. And to this day, nothing grows there. That's bizarre, right? Because the surrounding forest is dense with vegetation, trees everywhere, thick undergrowth, but this one spot, completely bare. In the late 1970s, Romanian botanists decided to investigate. The first thing they did was test the soil. Maybe it's contaminated, toxic chemicals, something preventing plant growth. The results shocked them. The soil was perfectly normal, good pH levels, plenty of nutrients, actually more fertile than the surrounding forest soil. This makes no sense. Plants should be thriving here. They ran an experiment. They took soil from the clearing, put it in pots, and planted seeds. What happened? The seeds sprouted fine. Plants grew normally. So it's not the soil. Next, they brought in physicists with electromagnetic field equipment. They scanned every inch of that clearing, and they found something. Electromagnetic readings 3 times higher than the surrounding area. With fields this strong, it could definitely affect plant growth. Maybe explain the electronic malfunctions people report. But there was still a problem. Why is it a perfect circle? Natural electromagnetic anomalies should be irregular, random, but this clearing was too precise, like someone drew it with a compass. In the 1980s, they measured radiation levels with Geiger counters. Sure enough, slightly elevated readings. Not dangerous, but abnormal. They found limestone layers underground with certain minerals that emit weak radiation. But this still doesn't explain everything. The perfect shape, the complete absence of vegetation, the way electronics malfunction. Scientists had to admit it. They had pieces of the puzzle, but no complete picture. In the 1990s, a research team tried to film the area with a drone. The drone flew fine. The memory card had the file. But when they tried to play the footage of the clearing, it wouldn't work. The video file is corrupted. It's like it stretched and broke. Only the clearing section. Everything else recorded fine. People who visit Hoia Forest report strange experiences. Many discover unexplainable injuries after leaving. August 18, 1999. 5 men from Cluj-Napoca decided to explore the forest. They entered during the hottest part of the day, laughing and joking about how ridiculous the rumors sounded. They headed straight for the clearing. Let's see who can solve this mystery first. They walked for hours, enjoying the shade of the trees. But then something strange happened. The closer they got to the clearing, the colder it became. Think about that for a second. It was summer, the hottest time of the day. They were approaching an open clearing where sunlight should hit directly. It should have been warmer, but instead, the temperature dropped. They tried to take photos. Fully charged that morning. Dead. Their phones? Same thing. The compass they brought started spinning erratically, like it was broken. Flashlights flickered even though no one touched them. Okay, this is getting weird. Mark the trees so we can find our way back. They couldn't trust the compass or their electronic maps anymore, so they marked trees as they went. The 5 of them stayed close together, no longer laughing. The forest had gone silent, just the wind and their footsteps on dry leaves. But then one of them heard something. Heavy footsteps. But all 5 of them had stopped walking. The footsteps continued. Not from one direction. They were circling the group. When they looked around, no one else was there. The sound grew louder, closer. Then whispers started emerging from the shadows. At first, it sounded like breathing. Then actual whispers. Some of them felt eyes watching from behind the trees. Others started hearing laughter from unseen figures. The cold came again, even stronger this time. They rushed back the way they came, following the marks they'd left. But something was following them, a shadow-like figure moving through the trees, flying between branches at impossible speeds. 3 of them felt dizzy and nauseous. One felt something scratching his hand even though he touched nothing. The sky turned dark. What should have been a short walk out became hours of running. They couldn't find their marks anymore. Without flashlights, only moonlight guided them. Finally, they burst out of the forest. One of them grabbed his phone. It worked. Battery full. Every electronic device they brought, all working normally again, full battery. And their symptoms? All gone. Everything back to normal. In 2005, a group of Romanian university students explored the forest during daylight. 3 hours of walking around. Nothing dangerous happened, or so they thought. When they got back to their lodging, one of them looked in the mirror and screamed. 3 long scratch marks on the back of their neck. When did this happen? I didn't feel anything. Another student had bruises on their arm, no memory of getting hurt. These aren't isolated cases. Countless visitors report the same thing. I felt fine in the forest, but when I showered at home, I found 3 scratch marks on my back, like fingernails, 6 purple bruises on my leg, and I don't remember bumping into anything. Doctors tried to explain it as delayed trauma perception. You were tense, so you didn't feel pain. Adrenaline kept you from noticing injuries from branches or rocks. But some injuries were too deep, too precise, like they were made with something sharp, deliberately. Perhaps the strangest documented case involves a girl. One day she was playing alone near her house while her parents did chores. Hours passed and she didn't come home. Her parents searched frantically, calling her name near the forest entrance. Nothing. The entire village mobilized. They split into groups, searching for any glimpse of red. She'd been wearing red clothes. They searched for days. Some brave souls even approached the clearing, though most were too afraid. Those who got close reported feeling dizzy, their communication devices malfunctioning. But the girl, still no trace. The case was marked as a missing person. 5 years later, a villager gathering firewood in the forest suddenly screamed. He'd seen something red running through the trees. A girl, the same girl who disappeared 5 years ago. And she looked exactly the same. Same clothes, same face, same height, acting like nothing had happened. The villagers were skeptical. 5 years is a long time. They ran DNA tests. Perfect match. It was her. Same condition, no signs of aging, no malnutrition. When asked what happened, she said she'd just been chasing bugs for a while. She thought she'd been gone for 2 hours, not 5 years, 2 hours. The case was officially closed as solved, but nobody could explain what actually happened. Was she in another dimension? Did time move differently inside that forest? Nobody knows. The phenomena in Hoia have attracted scholars, explorers, and parapsychologists from around the world, but nobody has reached a definitive answer. Instead, they have competing theories. Adrian Petrut, a chemistry professor at Babes-Bolyai University and president of the Romanian Society of Parapsychology, has been studying the forest since the 1970s. He describes it as an experimental field where human consciousness gets affected by spatial electromagnetic changes. His team measured brain waves inside the forest. The deeper they went toward the center, the more beta waves spiked. Those are linked to anxiety and heightened alertness. Some subjects reported feeling like time was stretching out. Petrut believes the forest manifests what people already believe. Groups who believe in ghosts see ghosts. UFO enthusiasts see UFOs. Skeptics see nothing. But does that explain the physical evidence, the photographs, the injuries? Some people claim that during World War II, the Romanian military used this area for electromagnetic experiments. The theory is they deliberately spread UFO stories and ghost legends to cover up spatial distortion phenomena from failed experiments. There's no proof, of course, but the fact that Emil Barnea's original photograph disappeared, that makes people suspicious. And lastly, the supernatural view. Occult researchers call the forest a portal, a boundary between dimensions. The theory is that when specific electromagnetic conditions align, the membrane of space becomes thin, and a passage opens. They point to the time distortions, the disappearances, the girl who didn't age. That circular clearing isn't just ground, they believe, it's a door, and sometimes that door opens. Today, Hoia Forest is still there. The Romanian government hasn't closed it off. Entry isn't banned. Anyone can visit, but not many people do, especially not the locals. So what do you think? Would you visit this forest?